Hello YouTube, this is Froogle and welcome back to part 2 of our new fully loaded look at the PMDG 737 NGX in FSX Steam Edition. Now you remember in part 1 that we set up the aircraft, we did the full startup and power up, we did the flight planning, that's all good to go. We are at Orbx's Juneau airport in Alaska. We're running the Orbx scenery as well as Orbx FTX Global, also Rex 4, Texture Direct, Rex Soft Clouds and a ton of other things as well. It is time to begin our taxi procedure, in fact to work through a checklist. Now a few of you did spot errors and quirks and discrepancies. They're going to happen, I'm going to make mistakes, I'm not a professional pilot, I am a gamer. But even so, thanks, I'll go through some of them right now, not all of them, because I want to get ready and get taxiing out. So what we'll actually do is we'll run through the checklist and I'll show you how checklists can catch many of the things that I made wrong. So first of all, our before taxi or taxi procedure before takeoff procedure is taxi light switch now needs to go on. So that's on up here. So we'll turn on the taxi lights, we'll also turn on the runway turn off lights because that's the next item on the checklist. Next thing, flaps, check their set. Well, they're currently set to 5, and if we cross-check our flight plan and our performance data, you'll see that in our performance data we should be on flaps 1. Which is why my V speeds were all very, very wrong. So I'm going to adjust that right now. And we'll go to flaps 1. And having done that, a little bit non-normal, but we'll go ahead in here and set in flaps 1. That changes our V speeds. So we'll clear the error. And we'll go V1, V2, and V3. So now we're seeing a V1 of 151, V rotate of 152, and a V2 of 155. And if we look at our performance data, that's actually very, very close to what PFPX gave us, which was 151, 152, 156. So we do, of course, now need to adjust our MCP, which is there. So the speed here is going to be 155. So that's good. Next item on the checklist. Stabilizer trim, make sure that that is set. Well, we need to look down here because we just adjusted everything down here. Stabilizer trim should be 5.32, and it's pretty much there. That'll do, 5.32. Parking brake, we're going to release that in a second. Weather radar now we can turn on as needed. So what we'll do for the weather radar, because this has a working weather radar, but you're not likely to see very much, whoops, because the weather's actually pretty clear. Now, just as I said in my 777 videos, the weather radar works with Active Sky Next, which is managing our weather today, but just like in a real aircraft, it will only show you things with a lot of moisture. So although there might be fluffy clouds in the sky, they might not show up on the weather radar if they don't have a ton of moisture inside them. But even so, we'll give ourselves the best chance of seeing something by turning the gain all the way up. Make sure that we're on auto, just adjusting the left side here. Weather and turbulence, so that's all good. And as we start moving away from the terminal, we'll actually click the weather button to turn that on. Cabin notification, well, we'll assume that we've told the cabin what we're going to do. So time now to start taxiing. One other thing I did actually miss up here, I actually turned the strobe lights on to on. They should be on steady, which they're currently on right now. Okay, so let me adjust my seat, adjust my view. We'll knock the brakes off with my feet, and we'll give it a little bit of power, not a whole lot. Just enough to start moving. Doesn't need a huge amount of power to get moving. Whoops. Sorry, my rudder pedals were a little bit out of step there. Should have calibrated those first. In fact, before we even try to take off, so I'm going to fly the first part of this manually because it's such a beautiful day. Let me just check that all this is working. Yep, that's all good. Okay. So taxiing, we don't want to exceed 25 knots ground speed, or even, sorry, 20 knots ground speed. So there's our ground speed there. We're currently doing 8 knots. So the way I do it, and it might not be realistic, but it works in a desktop simulator like FSX, can I increase the power and then just knock it off. So you saw the power go all the way up on both engines there to nearly 30%. Then I come off it and you see the speeds coming up quite nicely. As we get closer to the end and we need to start our turn, you want to be turning at 10 knots or less. So what I'll typically do there is sometime before we come up on the turn, just come off the power completely and let the aircraft just coast and slow down on its own. So my power lever is a little bit out of sync, but you're going to have that problem as well if you're using independent power levers. They rarely have the amount of precision that's required. Unfortunately, there's 20 knots, so you see here off the power. Just let it coast at 20 knots, trying to hold us roughly on that center line, but again, the quirks and limitations of desktop equipment. Let me just make sure these rudder pedals are fully calibrated there, just by feeding in maximum deflection left and right. And it really is a beautiful day. It's a little bit cold, This is real weather for February the 26th here in Juneau, Alaska. It's a little bit cold, obviously, but other than that, it's a nice, crisp, clear sky. We're not expecting a whole lot of weather drama en route. But what we will be doing today is doing the takeoff. I'll show you how to do that. Doing the climb. We'll do the initial part of the SID manually, just have a bit of fun. Now, what that also means is because I'm flying the aircraft when we take off and I don't have a first officer in the right-hand seat, some switches and knobs and buttons are not going to get clicked as quickly as perhaps they should be, because I don't want to take my hand off the controls to grab a mouse and change my view to access the appropriate part of the cockpit. So concessions again for gaming. Let's turn on that weather radar now, see if we see anything. We won't. Now our range on that navigation display is 10 miles, which is perfect and ideal. It gives us enough detail. And you see we've still got a slight loop there on the navigation display. Don't worry, that's going to go away as soon as we take off and start flying en route, especially since we're flying manually. And what that normally is a conflict between waypoints on the SID and where we currently are. It's saying, oh, to get this waypoint you'd need to do a big loop around to hit the next one because it's so close. You'll find as we go straight through them, it won't matter too much. And if we need to, we can bring up the CDU and do a direct to command to fly direct to a specific waypoint. So we're at 18 knots. And as we pass this turning here, what I'm going to do is completely come off the power right now. So both power levers are completely idle. I'm not going to hit the brakes. Or try not to. I might need to tap them lightly as we get towards the end here. And you should see the aircraft will start slowing down. There's 19, 18, all the way down to 15, and we should be about 10 knots when we hit that corner. It's not really a corner, it's not a racetrack, Froogle. But once we hit that turn, we should be, there you go, 10 knots. So a little bit more power just to hold the 10 knots. And then we'll start turning around. There, perfect. So feeding in some right rudder pedal now, just tracking that center line as best as I can. Again, harder to do in a sim than it actually is in a real aircraft. And there is runway 26. So we'll stop right here and look at our checklist, because there is invariably stuff that we will need to do. So, assuming we're cleared onto the runway, what we're going to need to do is go up to the overhead. We'll turn strobes on at this point. I did get that ridiculously stupidly wrong in the last video. We'll turn on our landing lights, so our lights are all on. Our transponder, make sure that we are still on TA and RA. Nothing has changed there, we should be, and we are. We're going to make sure the auto throttle is engaged, which it currently is. Turn the page, and that's all there is to it. So once we get on the runway and line up, we'll also start the clock. And we're going to be using the clock in our flight to track our progress against the plan. So all we're going to do once we actually get in position is click on the, where is it? That click spot right there. It's hard to get sometimes, so that one, which will start the clock running. So a bit more power now, let's line up. There's two ways of taking off. You can line up, and if you're cleared, then keep moving and gently increase the power, and then obviously hit the toggle buttons on the side of the throttle, which are also the click spot right about here. Or you can do it the EasyJet way and line up on the runway, hold the brakes on, and indulge your boy racer fantasies by spooling the engines up to maximum before releasing the brakes, which is very dramatic and a lot of fun. We'll probably be doing that. Okay, turned a little bit wide there. Let's just line up here. Alright, and we'll grind to a stop. I'm going to hold it on the brakes. I'll stop the chronometer now, and what I'm going to do is increase power, and then as the engines stabilize about there, make sure that they do stabilize, and then hit toga like so. Up come the engines thanks to auto throttle, off the brakes now, and away we go. Now like I said, I'm going to fly this first part manually, so what I'm going to be doing is following the pink or magenta lines down here. Those are flight directors, and they will direct you on your flight. That's what they're for. So they'll guide you appropriately. Auto throttle will manage our power so we don't overspeed or anything nasty like that. You can already see the lift bar has gone up, meaning it wants us to nose up, but now it's not the right time. I need to move my chair back a little. I'm going to be having this yoke in my lap. Wait for the call outs.
V1. Rotate.
Okay,
V2.
pull up. Bring that nose up to align with the magenta line. Positive rate so gear can go up. I need to lock the gear, but I'll do that, like I said, when I finish flying manually and I have a bit more time on my hands. So just trying to keep those two pink lines there crossed. As we pass 1,000 feet shortly, the nose will come down and we'll start accelerating. Also looking at the number 1 on that speed tape, which is our flaps position, our flaps marker. Once we hit that, we'll be bringing the flaps up, of course, which should be fairly soon. We're at 300 feet now. Again, nothing on the weather radar because none of these clouds ahead of us have a significant amount of moisture. There's our 1,000 feet. You should see that pink bar start to come down in a second. Whoops. A little bit of a wind there. There's the bar moving, so it will nose over. That will bring our speed up. Then we're watching the speed tape to pull in the flaps at the appropriate point in time. Now, some airlines will have you arm LNAV and VNAV on the ground for navigation, autopilot navigation. Some will not. I have not armed them. We'll do that in a second. There we go. As we pass 2,500 feet, that's an appropriate point, I think. So, VNAV, LNAV, and Command A. Autopilot now has control. Speed will come up now. And you can see the green arrow here indicating the speed is rising. While that's rising, let's go up to the overhead. We'll turn off the runway turn-off lights and the taxi lights. We'll click on the gear here to lock it. We will turn RTO off. And as we hit that number 1 mark there, flaps up. And let's think now about running the after takeoff checklist. So after takeoff, positive rate of climb, gear up. We've got that. Flaps are retracted. Autopilot is now set and engaged. Don't have a VNAV. Engine bleeds. We need to make sure that they are set, and we need to verify them. They are obviously up here. And yes, I think we're good there. Engine start switches now need to go to off. And our auto brake selector needs to go off. So all we have to wait for now is 10,000 foot, at which point 10,000 feet, at which we do our 10,000 foot climb procedure. Now, a couple of people pointed out that my flight plan from the previous video as well had a step climb. We're not going to be doing a step climb in this flight. It is in the flight plan from PFPX, and we could do it, but I'm going to keep things very simple because I am aware that a lot of you watching this are new pilots to the 737NG in FSX Steam Edition. So let's not worry about step climbs too much. We'll go into the hows and whys and whens and wheres on the next 777 video I do. So 5,000 feet. At 10,000 feet, landing lights go off and we do our 10,000 foot flow, which is obviously verified at fuel pumps. We are very low on that center pump at this point. We'll keep watching that. We will turn the center pumps off soon. There's our 250 knots, which is the speed limit under 10,000 feet. And the aircraft now starting to get itself very much on route. Now we need to be at or above 10,000 foot of this waypoint. Remember, that's why we put that other line in there. I'm going to assume at this point ATC has cleared us up to our cruise altitude, so I'll dial this up to 34. Flight level 340. Like so. You can see it's reflected in here as well. Now all that's left to do is just look out the scenery flying past the window. Beautiful Orbx Alaska scenery. Oh, that's a murky cloud. I'm surprised that has no moisture in it, to be honest. Yeah. What's our temperature? We're good. We're alright. Doesn't seem to be a great deal of moisture. We're not having a wet windscreen or anything. There we go. Yeah, just a fluffy cloud. Normally for a big thick cloud, especially like these ones, or if we were flying through the heart of this one over here, you'd put anti-ice on because moisture is something that can freeze and that can cause us problems. But by and large, everything looks good. We're going to pass by these clouds, pass over that one, or just through the very top of it. We should be fine. And there's our 9,000 feet. Let's change our range up here on this display. We are absolutely going to hit the constraint here. Remember, it was 10,000 feet at or above 10,000 feet at Cushy. We're coming up on 10,000 feet right now, so we're just fine at that constraint. So there's 10,000 feet now. So landing lights can go off by right-clicking that bar. We'll check our fuel pumps. Well, we do have a little bit of fuel left in that center tank, so we'll leave them on for a little while longer. Other than that, they're all good. Passenger signs can stay on right now. We can flick the chime just to let the attendants be past 10,000 feet. Typically at this point they'd get up, start walking around and doing their bit. And all we need to do now is monitor the flight, and I'll go into what monitoring the flight means in a second. Let's watch that fuel there. I think at about 0.05 I'll knock the center pumps off. There we go. No need to run the tanks dry. And we're good. Now at flight level 180, our transitional altitude, we'll go to standard, which is, we'll click this button here to change the altimeter setting from 3033 to standard, so that ATC has all aircraft at the right height, at the same height. Obviously the barometric pressure affects the readout you're getting on the altimeter, so setting standard at a certain point does guarantee to air traffic control that when they see two aircraft at flight level 220, they are both exactly at 220. Let's get rid of that display down the bottom there. And as soon as we pass Cushy, you'll see the color of the waypoints here change. This will no longer be pink, this will. Then we'll bring up the flight plan and we'll look at what monitoring the flight means. There it goes now, so it just switched. So let's pop on down here. And let's look at legs. Now it's saying ASORT. In fact, let's not. Let's look at progress. My apologies. It's saying ASORT would be at 2101 with 16.8 thousand pounds of fuel. And if we look at our flight plan, you'll see it has predictions in there. And it says, if I can find ASORT, alright, distance to go is 8 miles. If we look at our clock up here, 2100. So we've got 1 minute to go. If we hit it within 1 minute, once this changes, we'll basically check the clock and check the fuel over here. So it's predicting 16.8. Our flight plan for ASORT was also predicting 17.1. So we have burned a little bit of extra fuel. Not a big deal. That was by running the APU a little bit longer than we should have done. But we'll just keep an eye on this. In fact, we'll go back to the pilot flying view because it's easier. And I will pop open the clock here. Sorry, pop open the CDU. And we're just waiting for this to change. At which point we'll look at the clock, which is currently showing 8 minutes into the flight. And our flight plan shows ASORT to be at 9 minutes. It should jump over any second since we just started turning. Come on. Come on, flick over. We're about to pass flight level 180, so standard. ASORT just flicked, and we are at 9 minutes into the flight, 09. See it right there, and if we check our flight plan, it does say 09, but it expected 17.1 thousand pounds of fuel. We have 16.6. So we're a little bit under on the fuel, but not a great deal, because our reserve fuel that we planned on the flight is, looking at our release sheet here, 4,100 pounds of fuel, so 4.1. We are currently 0.4, 0.5 under on our fuel, but we have more than enough contingency, so we're just fine. So all that remains at this point is just to get up to the cruise. So we'll do just that. That will actually be the end of this part of the video. In part 2, as we are in the cruise and heading towards top of descent, I'll show you how to plan that descent as we fly into Anchorage and follow the star to land on runway 07 left in Anchorage. As always, my name is Froogle. Thank you so very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you soon.